Hey everybody, and welcome back to lesson 5 for linear relations. Today we're going to be looking at another form of the equation for a linear relation, and specifically we're going to be looking at graphing and describing horizontal and vertical lines. So this means that we're going to either be given just a value for x or just a value for y. Now if we look here, for this graph that we're going to start off with in example 1, we're just given a value for x. So let's see what happens if we're going to be creating a horizontal or a vertical line when you're given just a value for x. Now, having only a value for x means that all of your x values are going to be 2. Because this case, it says graph x equals 2. So x will always equal 2. So you can jump in and fill in all of your values for x as 2 right now. The next step is coming up with values for y. Now, just in terms to work on plotting different points, I am just picking random points along, but you could really choose any point and you're going to see what happens right away. So the points that I chose were 1, 0, -4, 7, -7, 10, and 5. Or sorry, -5. So we move over to the graph now. If x is always going to be 2, well, we know that we're going to be first looking at our x and then looking at our y. So we start off at our origin and we move over 2. Let's change color. Move over 2, and then we're going to move up to 1. So that's where our first point is going to be. The next one is 2 and y is 0. So x again is 2 and y is going to be 0. So it's right below it. Third one is 2 and -4, 2 and 7, 2 and -7, 2 and 10, and 2 and -5. So just by looking at the points that we've plotted, can you tell if this is going to be a horizontal or a vertical line? Well, when you're only given the x, you're going to create a vertical line. So x is always going to be 2 along that specific point of 2, and it's going to create a vertical line. So it doesn't matter what y value you choose, it's always going to fall on the x of 2. Now your next step is to create your line with the arrows at both sides because it's going to continue in either direction. Now you've got your arrows on both sides of that line, and your line may not be as nice as mine, but the whole point here is to create that vertical line so that you can see that when you're graphing something where x equals 2, it's going to create a vertical line on the 2 right here. So it's going to create that vertical line where you move over to the 2 on the x, and it's going to create that vertical line right there. Next, we're going to look at the graph for 2x equals -6. Now, your first thing that you need to do here is you need to isolate x. Now, we have a 2 on this x right now, so we have to do the opposite. So opposite of multiplication is division. And what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So that's going to cancel those off, and you're left with x equals, now you have -6 divided by 2, which gives you -3. So you know that your x value is going to always be -3. Now I'm going to leave you to finish this graph off yourself, and you can check your answers in the class OneNote. But before we move on to the next page, I just want to pay attention to this point at the bottom here, where when we're looking at a graph of just x equals a, you're going to create a vertical line through A. So whatever your value is right here, you're going to have a vertical line that is going to pass through A on the x-axis. Now we're going to look at a different one here where we're looking at y. But before we can look at y, we have 2y. So we have to isolate y. That means we have to get rid of this 2. So to get rid of the 2, we divide by 2, cancels off. So this is going to create y equals, and we have 8 divided by 2, which gives us 4. So our y value is going to be 4. We can fill that in on all of the chart because the y value is going to stay consistent here. Now, just like on the last one, I've picked random points just so that we can work on plotting the information. So I've picked points of 0, -8, 3, -10, 1, 2, and -2. So we have y equals 4. So y is always going to be 4. So we're going to be moving along here. Now, I picked random points where 0 and 4, -8 and 4, 3 and 4, -10 and 4, 1 and 4, 2 and 4, and -2 and 4. After you've plotted your point, your next thing then is to make your line running through the points with arrows at both sides. And now that we have our nice line running through those points, we've finished off this graph. Next one here is we have y plus 2 equals 0. So remember, we have to isolate y, so we're going to have to move this to the other side. Now I'm going to leave this for you to complete. Just remember, you're doing the opposite of what is there. So if you have multiplication, you're doing division. If you have adding, you're doing subtraction. So I'm going to let you finish this off and check in the class OneNote to finish off this page. But before you finish, we're looking at graphs where y equals a. So that means that we're creating a horizontal line that goes through a, so whatever that value is, on the y-axis. So it's going to run right through that specific point on the y-axis. So hopefully this clarifies and makes sense of how to describe horizontal and vertical lines. Also, just one thing I wanted to add, that if you are checking the tabs, I have added a new tab now under the worksheets. This is the worksheets you should be completing that go along with the lesson. Now I have added the answer sheets as well. I'll continue to add the answer sheets in there as we go through the lessons. Just in case you have any questions, you can check there first, and if it's still not making sense, as always, feel free to email me.